Test 9. It is 40 questions. Covers everything in just chapter 9. Section 1 is questions 1 through 10. And it is going to be the reflexive verbs. And it's going to be just like your homework and the worksheet where it's a fill in the blank. So the directions are fill in the blank with the correct form of the reflexive verbs and pronouns. So you're going to have a blank, you're going to have a sentence with a blank in it, and then you're going to have the verb. One thing that I want to make sure that you guys know is that reflexive verbs are just like any other verb. Okay, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Reflexive verbs are just like any other verbs. So if you had something like, okay, like that. This is just basically the verb bañar. This right here, all this does is tell you that it's reflexive, okay? So if you're like me and you need kind of step-by-step stuff, what I would do is step 1, excuse me, pretend like the say is not on the verb, okay? Now this is just bañar, to bathe oneself. To bathe oneself. Oh my goodness. So the first thing you do is cover this up in your mind or with your hand or whatever, and deal with the verb like you normally would, okay? So if you had something like, a sentence like, use informal, oh, what am I doing? Duh, it's in Spanish, to todos los días. Okay, so you bathe yourself every day. Todos los días means every day, all of the days. Okay, so, oh my gosh, sorry. Okay, or you have something like necesitas blank todos los días. So you bathe yourself every day, or you need to bathe yourself every day. I just have something in my throat. Ugh. Okay, so cover this up. Decide what you have to do with the verb. Okay, for this sentence, there is no other verb. This is the only conjugated verb. So when I put bañar in there, I'm going to conjugate bañar for 2. Okay, that's going to be bañas. Okay, because you conjugate it like any other regular AR verb. All right. For this sentence, I already have a conjugated verb. Okay, so the next one that I needs to stay in the infinitive. So this is going to be bañar. Okay, so same verb, 2 different sentences, and you have to do different things with them. So step 1, cover this up, deal with this verb however the sentence requires. In this sentence, it was required to be conjugated. In this sentence, it was required to stay the infinitive. All right, step 2, decide what reflexive pronoun you need. So we covered this up at first to deal with this. Now we're covering this up to deal with this, okay? Reflexive pronouns are may, te, say, nos, and say, all right? So if my subject in both of these is actually 2, this one I know because it actually says 2. This one I know because this verb is conjugated to 2. Necesitar is the verb, conjugated as ending is 2. So they're both 2. Okay, so my reflexive pronoun has got to be te for both of these. Okay, then step 3 is, what do I do with the pronoun? Okay, step 1, deal with the verb. Step 2, deal with the pronoun. Step 3, where does the pronoun go? Now, reflexive, direct, and indirect object pronouns all follow the same placement rules. Okay, so if you have one single conjugated verb, your pronoun, whether it's reflexive, direct, or indirect, has to go before the verb. If you have an infinitive, your verb can go attached to the infinitive or at the end, after an attached to the infinitive, or it can go before the conjugated verb. And then if you have the present progressive, it can go before the conjugated estar or attached to the present participle. Now, just FYI, there are no present progressives on the test, okay? You're either going to be dealing with conjugated verbs or infinitives. That's the only thing that's going to be on the test. So with this sentence, we have one single conjugated verb, which means that my reflexive pronoun has to go before the verb. Okay, so it's going to be tú te bañas todos los días. That's the answer. With this one, I have an infinitive, which means that I have two verbs. That means two options. I can either come back here and put it before the conjugated verb, or I can attach it to the end of this infinitive. Because we're dealing with fill in the blank, if I were you, I would just go ahead and deal with it in the blank. So we're going to put te attached to the infinitive. Okay, so that is what this part is going to deal with. So that's 1 through 10. It's going to be all the different reflexive verbs that you know. Now, just a heads up, vestirse and acostarse are both stem changing verbs. Okay, vestirse, vestir is an E to I verb, and acostarse is an O to UE verb. So think about that. If you have one of these verbs on the test and they're both boot verbs, so if it's a nosotros conjugation, you don't stem change it. But if it's a yo to LA usted, ellos ustedes conjugation, then you have to stem change it. Okay? So E to I, O to UE. Okay? All right, that should be it for that. Okay. Part 2 is 5 questions, 11 to 15. Okay. It is going to be still dealing with reflexive, and in this case, is it reflexive or not? So you need to know what the sentence is saying. All right. I think I wrote sentences that you will know what they're saying. So if you had a sentence like, well, let me read the directions. Say, decide if the verb is reflexive. If it is, write. I spelled right wrong, just by the way, which is ironic because right and wrong, even though it's not the right. I spelled it with a TH, but it's supposed to say right. So anyway, if it is, write the correct reflexive pronoun. If it's not, write a dash. So just like mark a line through the blank. Okay. So it's going to be something like Susana los perros. El papi es perritos. Okay. So you have to decide, is this lavar, is lavar in this case reflexive? Okay. So remember that reflexive has to do with if the subject is the same as the receiver of the action. So if the doer of the action is also the receiver, changes in bodily position. So like going to bed, your whole body is going to bed. Getting up in the morning, your whole body is getting up and out of bed in the morning. Okay. There's some other things that we didn't learn. We'll learn those next year. Dealing with like emotion and stuff. But so Susana lava los perritos. So Susan washes the dogs or the puppies. Is this a reflexive construction? It is not, because Susan is washing something else. If she were washing her hands, well, let's do so. So this gets a dash, okay? If Susana, las manos, okay? We know that in a reflexive construction, we don't say sus manos or tus manos or nuestros manos. We say las manos because it's redundant, okay? So las manos indicates that Susan is washing her own hands. All right, so that means that in this case, this lava is reflexive because Susan is doing the action and she's receiving the action of washing her own hands. So she's doing the washing, and it's her hands that are being washed. So we have to say. Okay. Now it's say because Susana is third person, and say is the third person reflexive pronoun. Hey, guys, come here. You want to say hi? Come here. Oh, he thinks daddy's. Come here. Say hi. Say hi, everybody. Nope. He's been looking for his daddy this morning, and I don't know what it is. He keeps looking towards the garage. I know, puppy. It's too early. It's too early for that. Okay. Part 3 is write the demonstrative adjectives that describes each noun. So I've given you a noun, and then I've given you the word like this, those, that, those over there, these, okay? And so you need to know that demonstrative adjectives match their nouns in gender and number. So we start with the este, and aquel. Oh, hold on just a second. Okay, so we start with the demonstrative adjectives. So we have este, esta, estos, and estas for this. And technically these two mean these. Okay. Then we have ese, esa, esos, and esas, which means that. And these two technically mean those. Okay. And then we have aquel. Oops. I made up room. Aquel, aquella, aquellos, and aquellas, right? That over there, and those over there. Okay. Gosh, you're not going to be able to see that, are you? Maybe now. I'll change markers. How about that? So anyway, you got to know what each of these means, and then you need to know how to make it. I missed. Match in gender and number to the noun that it's modifying. Okay. So if I said something like veras. Woo. This is so much better. Veras, and I said those over there. There's a park behind our house, and sometimes I just in the school, and sometimes I just hear screaming, and it kind of freaks me out. There's like some guy screaming back there. Yelling, not really screaming, yelling. Anyway, weird. Okay, so veras and those over there. So those over there is got to be aquel, but since it's plural and feminine, it has to be aquellas. Okay. If I said something like piña, and I said this, then this is singular and feminine, and so this has to be esta. Okay? So you should know this. I think you guys did okay on this. Part 4 and 5 are translation for vocabulary. So part 4 is 22 to 26. I don't know if I told you this one. Part 3 is 16 to 21. So part 3 is 16 to 21. Part 4 is 22 to 26. It is going to be English to Spanish. And then part 5 is 27 to 31. And it's Spanish to English. Okay. And then 32 to 40 are translations, like sentences. So this is vocab, same as always. Make sure you pay attention to articles, or if it's a verb, an infinitive, then you have to use like to, verb, or if it's an article, you actually have to translate the article. All right, the translations for sentences are going to be dealing with comparisons and superlatives. So comparisons were like más, que, menos, que, and tan, como. All right. So less than, more than, less than, as. So basically equal to. It also is going to be dealing with demonstrative adjectives, so be aware of that. So I might have something like these magazines are worse than those magazines. Okay. All right, so magazine, the word for magazine is revista. That was in one of your vocabulary lessons many moons ago. To say these, so if magazines is revistas, I'm going to say these. This is feminine and plural, so this has to be feminine and plural. That means it has to be estas revistas son. This is plural, this has to be plural. When you're talking about comparing, you're basically either going to say like, you're going to use the verb ser, and then you have to conjugate ser for the subject, obviously, which in this case is plural. So it has to be son. Now, this was one of the actually one of the exceptions. So we had like 4 exceptions, I think. There's like better, worse, bigger, older, bigger, smaller, I think. No, older and younger. And then so this worse is actually peor. You wouldn't say less good than or not as good than, you'd say worse, which is actually peor. So you'd say son peores que those magazines, esas revistas. Okay, so this is plural, this is plural. The adjective that's describing them has to match, so it has to be plural too. Those magazines, since it doesn't say those and then in parentheses over there, that means that it's probably within the reach of, somebody that I'm talking to, or it's not that far away from me. So I say those is esas. Okay, so this is a comparison. You may have something like why can't I think of a sentence? How about this apple is not as delicious as that apple. Okay, so this once again has to be esta, because this word for apple is manzana. Is not. No S, because this is singular, so this verb is singular. Tan, okay. As, remember this is as, so it's like equal to. Tan, now this word, I don't know if you know this, delicioso, delicioso, tan deliciosa has to be deliciosa because this is feminine as well. This is an adjective. So adjectives that end in O have to match in gender and number. Deliciosa, como. That. Esa manzana. Okay, so does that make sense? Oh, it's so needy. Okay, so there's another example. And then for the superlative, so comparison is going to be more or less or as. For a superlative, that is going to be like la más deliciosa, la menos deliciosa, like the least. So that comparison is like saying and superlative is like saying est. So let's say that the you gotta move, buddy. B. Here is the least delicious. Okay. Let's say of all. Okay. All right. So we say la pear, la pera, es. Now, because this is the least, it is a superlative. Okay. So we say es la menos deliciosa of all. De todo. Okay. Of all is de todo. Once again, this is an adjective. It's describing delicious or pear, so you have to make it match in gender and number. This right here is the least, right? Because menos is less. But if you add this article, this definite article in front of it, then it means it adds this kind of s to it. So it's like the least delicious of all. Okay. So real quick, let me give you your key vocabulary for this section. You're going to need to know, basically, I took a lot of the vocabulary from your food vocabulary. So whatever chapter that, I think that was chapter 8, when we had, maybe even 7, that we had that whole long list of foods. So you need to review the foods because almost everything on here is from that, okay? Then you need to know how to say red. You need to know how to say big. You need to know how to say delicious. You need to know how to say of all. You need to say know how to say cold, which is frío. And then I don't know if I pointed this out to you. Drink. It's on your food vocabulary, but I'm not sure if I actually included it in what you had to memorize. So drink is la bebida. Okay, it is on your vocabulary, like on the page of the vocabulary. I'm just not sure that I actually included it in what you had to know. So everything else you should know either from this chapter or from the chapter of the vocabulary with food. And then, of course, there's 3 extra credit problems, and they deal with the cultural stuff. Looks like it's mostly about Argentina. Okay, so pretty much same as always. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope that you guys do really well. There's us. Say bye, puppy. Say bye. He just wants me to play with him. He really doesn't care how you do on your test. But I do. So let me know if you have any questions.